if you have an area that holds majority of South Sudanese oil, and that area could be captured by militias, independent contractor militia group can come and capture the area before the security of the nation begin to attempt to recapture it. That brings a simple question. Are they getting proper and better and timely intelligence than the state-owned military or security apparatus? Did you know that every single insurgency or war trend in Africa as it stands right now is as a result of the natural resources in those African countries? Do you know? Have you realized that? If you go to the Borno state in northern Nigeria, you find the Californium. That's been the main reason. And Californium has not even been allowed to be made as public as it is. And that's the main reason behind the insurgents and instability in the Borno part of Nigeria. If you go to Sudan, it is oil in the areas of Kordofan. If you go to Libya, it was the oil and the gold that led the removal of Muammar al-Gaddafi. I can give you a tall list. If you go to Congo, I mean the saddest country on the planet Earth, richest but the poorest. If you go there, you find out that all the insurgency. If you go to Mali, you realize that Assimi Goïta is fighting a very critical war internationally to protect its mineral, and is fighting locally to still protect the mineral from the local people. And these third-party, insurgents or jihadist group or militia groups have always been under the contractualization of certain major countries. My name is Ishmael Mubarak, and this is MI4 Studios. Subscribe to the channel. Let's get interactive in our email. Follow us on Facebook as well as TikTok at MI4 Studios, and subscribe on YouTube. So, if you go to South Africa, up until the apartheid was, calmed or tamed under His Excellency, Mandela, you'd realize that nobody was giving way for South Africans to have their way. And it was because of the gold that was in abundance in South Africa. If you go to Zimbabwe, it is because of the gold and other resources in Zimbabwe, which is why Zimbabwe has seen what it saw, and that led to the kind of leadership style Mugabe had lived. If you go to Uganda, Yoweri Museveni is now leading the country in a way, a manner he likes it to lead it, because it is in the interest of protecting it. If you go to Mali right now, Assimi Goïta General has been offered a 5-year presidential term uncontested. However you might think about it, the people feel that he's a better bet for security as for the nation as well as their resources to disregard. Wherever it is, if you go to Burkina Faso, if you go to Chad, Gabon, wherever it is, that you would find out that yes, there is a friction between the West and the African country, you would realize that there is a certain resources in the bone of contention. Just recently, Senegalese got the last bit of France out of their place. Of the last military French military camp was closed in Senegal, and the keys were handed over to the Senegalese president in a more negotiable manner. We do not know what sort of agreement has been signed and the consequences of the agreement that has been signed, because if I take a cue from the 1960-1961 a French agreement with the French-speaking countries in Africa, or the safer run economy in Africa, I would be more watchful, or as a journalist or as an analyst of these social and political issues, I would want to be mindful, or not just think about, France just left Senegal to disregard. Once there has been certain contractual agreement, those 11 factors or 14 factors that had crippled and bedridden these French-speaking African countries and siphoned their resources since 1960 up until today, still make any agreement with the West a very dangerous agreement for the Africans who are not actually well envisioned and well enthused about in the future. So that has been said, or this preamble has been made. You now come to understand the why I have associated the many wars and insurgents and destabilization on the African continent to the resources of Africa. Yes, some have been genuine, civil, and some have been more political, but then majority has been as a result of the resources or minerals that are deposited in these particular countries on the African continent. And yet the leaders have yet to learn to be able to lead properly and to be able to have their people stand behind them, just as Ibrahim Traore has had his people trusting him on the subject and on the development of the Burkinabe people to this regard. Right. So Sudan's Kordofan region has become the epicenter of brutal power struggle between the Sudanese army, that is the SAF, and the paramilitary rapid support forces, the RSF, with devastating consequences for civilians and regional stability. Why the Kordofan region really matters to these people: it is a strategic oil hub. Whoever controls Kordofan controls Sudan's oil supply. It's as simple as that. It's also vital to South Sudan, whose oil efforts rely on pipeline running through that particular region. Territorial leveraging, because if you have the oil, pipes or the field under your control, you can control territories. And to this regard, dominance here offers access to Central Sudan and could shift the balance of the world, because if you control that particular area, or if the wrong people are in control of that particular area, they could now negotiate you or coerce you to give them whatever it is they are looking for. Else there is an oil cut or supply into the central part of Sudan, and which is going to be more devastating than it is right now. And when you have the oil in the hands of the wrong people, selling the oil to the wrong people and through the wrong channel, you would find yourself to blame, because the GDP of South Sudan is relying greatly on the oil fields to this very regard. And so therefore, the army's offensiveness since June, as SAF has intensified efforts to reclaim Kordofan after retaking Khartoum and Gezira state. The RSF resilience, or the RSF fighters, many from the local, Mishiriri ethnic group, are fiercely defending their communities in the west of Kordofan. And airstrikes and retaliation are also currently happening as the army is bombarding in El Fula and Abu Zabad, killing dozens and prompting the RSF threat to shut down oil fields in the hedging areas of that. And this is why the conflict has really been escalating so far. There's been so much of humanitarian crisis, and yes, you cannot, shoot down humanitarian crisis when it comes to wars and conflict that has to do with national resources and other stuff. There are over 450 civilians, including children and pregnant women, who are reportedly killed in RSF attack in the northern part of Kordofan. Displacement is around 12 million people that have been displaced from communities to communities and other stuff, and the death toll has surpassed 150,000. Mother Africa, 150,000 is what the death toll has surpassed as it stands right now in South Sudan alone. And you see, the international condemnation is coming. UN agencies have, denounced attacks on schools and shelters, calling them violation of the humanitarian law, blah, 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 blah. But, when all of these things are happening and the IGPs are silent, then I begin to question every single institution that is seeking to protect and that is seeking to maintain peace and order in the world. Because the world is burning. Gaza, Palestine, Hamas, Israel is burning. Ukraine, Russia is burning. China, Taiwan is heated. If you move into Yemen, Israel, it's burning. US, Afghanistan, it's burning. Iraqi, US, the world is in flames. Somalia is burning. South Sudan is burning. Part of Mali, burning. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on. So, if you put together the millions of people dying daily from these stuff, and you realize that the world has created institutions that are supposed to deal and handle with these things, and yet we are seeing the nothing out of it, or very little out of it. It makes you question the actual standardization that is being used in handling these affairs. Very questionable. It's very questionable. The RSF, if you check in history, you would realize that they have international contractors. And so it becomes mind-boggling. The simple interest is the resource. The simple interest is the oil. And it's so strange that the security on these African countries, or from these African countries, have always acted after a takeover. So is it that these militias have got proper intelligence or timely intelligence than these militaries of the various African countries that have unfortunately faced this particular kind of regional and sectorial captures by militia group? Seemingly, from where I sit and from the many reads that I have had, from the news that we listen to, these capturing of the regions and these capturing of the places and locations are always done, and these are strategic locations that hold natural resources that is of greater impact into the country. So if you have an area that holds majority of South Sudanese oil, and that area could be captured by militias, independent contractor militia group can come and capture the area before the security of the nation begin to attempt to recapture it. That brings a simple question. Are they getting proper and better and timely intelligence than the state-owned military or security apparatus? What has become of the state-owned, finance, defense, security apparatus, or the bilateral relationships that are supposed to provide security intelligence ahead of time? What has happened to that particular concept? Because the intelligence is there to detect and to be able to predict and preempt what is and yet to happen. And yet, without any proper prediction, without any proper expectation, without any proper preparation, I don't know if the militia groups are more weaponized or are properly armed than the state. It's so much of work to think about. Have you thought about it? It's so much of work to think about. It's too much work to think about it, because it makes no sense. It's a lot of work to think about it, and it makes no sense. Too much work to think about, and it just makes no sense. Did they get better intelligence? Did they get timely intelligence? Are they more, armed than? So how do they take over? And what is the protection or the security, standards and statutes and recommendation for areas that are national resource based? What kind of management system is that? I mean, there are so many guns in America. You dare not come together as a gang into taking over a natural resource site. You dare not try it. You will die one time. You'll be killed before you even attempt to go out. You'll be smoked out. That is intelligence. The term is intelligence. Intelligence without error. Intelligence being of knowing. Intelligence be predictive, intelligent, be visionary, have envisage system, be futuristic in your actions. A failed security system, a failed intelligence system, a failed political system, a failed management system, a failed leadership system, and a failed citizenry system has caused the countless chaos that we're fighting about. Yes, I know some of my colleagues are, always blogging about. I do videos about how exciting decisions in Africa is being made and how it is actually trying to make Africa quite independent from whatever it is. But these are the realities of some of the things that happen in Africa, and I will speak about it. Africans are their own detractors. Yes, I know there are foreign interferences in so many of the things happening in Africa, so many of the things happening in South Sudan. Yes, I know, because foreign investors, some private contractors would just want to cause stabilization, destabilization, so that they are able to siphon, they are able to, steal, they are able to buy at a cheaper rate because they need it to sell quickly to be able to finance themselves, military, and all of that. Yes, I understand. And these militia groups would need the money and all of that, so they will sell in the black market instead standardization or selling in the right way and manner for countries to make profit out of it. I don't get it, and this is the kind of Africa we live in. My name is Ishmael Mubarak. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel.